We need to realize that BCM 2.0 and this transparency, like this change, is driven by the growing scrutiny of carbon credits, the need of greater transparency on the whole market, and the need to integrate voluntary markets with compliance frameworks.
Carbonsations, today's carbon industry leaders.
Welcome to the Carbonsations podcast, where we speak to some of the leading figures in the emerging carbon industry. Our guest today is Alex Saer, CEO of certified carbon standard Cercarbono. Alex, thank you so much for being here today. It's lovely to have you. Before we get into Cercarbono and what it's all about, it's tradition on this show that we first get to understand our guest's background a little bit better. So if you don't mind, I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit more about what you used to do before getting involved in carbon markets.
Hello, and thank you for having me here, Violet. It's a pleasure to be on this conversation and share insights on carbon markets, sustainability, and Cercarbono's role in shaping this evolving landscape. So I'm an industrial engineer and a political scientist. I've always believed that the most effective solutions come from understanding different perspectives. So being an industrial engineer and a political scientist helped me precisely to build on different ways to analyze things. So at that point, when I was studying these two different careers, people always ask me, like, what is the difference or what is the relationship between those two different careers? And I found that in sustainability, it's really important that we can always, since sustainability, in fact, and carbon markets is a really complex problem, that you can see it in different ways in order to understand it better, and ways to come with better solutions and holistic solutions. So I did these two undergrads, and then I did a master's on sustainable development with a Fulbright scholarship. And since my graduation, I started working with companies, industry associations, and also public entities in order how to incorporate sustainability into the action. On the business side, on how to get advantage of sustainability and how to, at some point get all the advantages from the challenges that sustainability poses to organizations. And from the political side, how to build public policy that is really implemented. So I worked for 4 years in the Ministry of Environment in Colombia. Firstly, as a director for sectorial affairs. So I was in charge of all the environmental policy for many sectors, agricultural sector, mining sector, oil and gas, residues. And I was in charge of developing the circular economy strategy of Colombia. And that was a really collaborative process in which we engage many parties and many stakeholders. And Colombia right now is highlighted as a country where circular economy has been really implemented. And then I worked as a climate change director, and also I was in charge of delineating the climate action law. And at that time, we were able to put all the NDC commitments of Colombia into law. So I think that's the first country to do that globally. It was Colombia. So it's a mandate, a legal mandate to comply with the NDC of the country. Then after that, I started working with Cercarbono, and I'm in charge of all the operations of Cercarbono and the globalization efforts of Cercarbono.
Excellent. That's definitely a very inspiring resume. But why specifically did you decide to join Cercarbono as its CEO? What was the motivation?
So when I worked for the Ministry of Environment, I understood the importance of carbon market, and not only for carbon markets, but also for all type of environmental markets and of biodiversity markets, circular economy markets. And the way to finance all the efforts that people is doing on the ground. So what we found when I was working, not only for the ministry, but also for the industry association, is the lack of financing on the projects that they have. And carbon markets has a really good example how to channel finance to mitigation activities. That has worked, that has many challenges, many criticisms, but it has worked. I have seen how these projects has been implemented on ground and has changed the whole livelihoods of local communities. I got the opportunity to join Cercarbono, and I was able to understood that this market was going to be really key on our global decarbonization efforts. I really found a motive in order to join the company.
Okay, and so with that in mind, what is your focus and vision for Cercarbono?
So Cercarbono is a company that was founded in Latin America in 2016. We are a standard setter. So being from a developing country and developing region give us a different perspective on carbon markets. So Cercarbono is kind of shaped by the economic and sustainability needs of the emerging economies, in which there is a huge importance on how this new market can benefit to these economies and can benefit to the population. We are headquartered in a country which is known to be a biodiversity hub. Colombia is one of the world's most biodiverse countries on the world. So that poses an importance on the actions that we do into nature and how can that help drive the development of the country. So keeping that in mind, our main focus on CEO, my vision is pretty clear. Firstly, I am here to transform, like we as Cercarbono, we are here to transform carbon markets globally, innovatively, and with integrity. So there are three main things there. So we are pretty focused on taking Cercarbono to the world. We want to become one of the top 3 carbon standards across the globe. And that needs a lot of work in order to being recognized and trusted as an international carbon standard. The second is innovation. And that's another part of my vision. Innovation should be, and it is, at the core of what we do right now. We are constantly pushing the boundaries. We are creating new programs. We are creating new methodologies in order to excel the certification process and to get into the market the best projects possible in the most efficient way. So that's another part of my vision. And that's part of the innovation as well. Like innovation also means for us that we need to offer efficient and reliable certification. So right now it's crucial that the market is moving, that 2030 commitments, the MDCs of the countries are on the right ahead of the corner. So we need to deliver and we need to be efficient. And with innovation, we are working on that. And finally, part of my vision as the CEO is that we should be fully committed to deliver high integrity credits. So we need to ensure quality, transparency on carbon credits, and we are working towards, having all this accreditation and incorporating the best practices in the market.
Excellent. Taking a bit of a step back from Cercarbono, I wanted to get your view on bigger picture matters as well, like how, as it's been dubbed now, the VCM 2.0 strives to be bigger and better in all the ways that VCM 1.0 was not. What would you say is the role of standard in the VCM that we're now building?
Yeah, we may remember that what we call VCM is shift towards great transparency, accountability, and aligning with global climate goals. We need to realize that VCM 2.0 and this transparency, like this change, is driven by the growing scrutiny of carbon credits, the need of greater integrity on the whole market, and the need to integrate voluntary markets with compliance frameworks. So in this case, on BCM 2.0, we need to work and we are working towards greater transparency. So for example, Cercarbono is one of the standards that puts more of the information of their projects available to stakeholders. We work with a registry called Eco-Registry that utilizes blockchain technology, and that really helps to enhance all the traceability, enabling stakeholders to monitor the entire life cycle of a carbon credit. The second part is the high integrity credits. Buyers are pretty worried about all the news and having credits that really reflects a change on the ground. So we have been working on strengthening our methodologies under Cercarbono and strengthening all the regulatory documents in order to build and enhance the integrity of these credits. For example, we launched on last September a new safeguards documents that really incorporates many, not only regional regulation, but also international regulations regarding the protection of indigenous people, local communities, and all the due diligence process that needs to be taken into the ground in order to protect the rights of the communities. Also, we have been working a transparency tool in order to, what we want is to build more transparency on how the benefits from the projects are being distributed into the communities and into the different stakeholders of the projects. So that's also an important part of BCM2, how we ensure that there is a total transparency on how these benefits and how these funds are being distributed into the communities and the stakeholders. And finally, one really important thing about BCM2 is that voluntary markets need to converge into the different regulatory schemes. So in the last years, we have seen that many countries have been building their own regulatory schemes. For example, Chile, they just launched their carbon tax with the compensation mechanism. Many states of Mexico, like Querétaro, Colima, are also doing that part. Brazil has been working on, they just approved the emission trading schemes last year. So there is a lot of developments at the public policy level. So there is a need to integrate the BCM with all these compliance carbon markets. So as a standard, the role is pretty central in that sense. We need to help bridge the interest of the countries, the interest not only of the country, the host countries, the buyer countries, and the organizations. And we are pretty central, pivotal to that tasks.
Yeah, that definitely does sound like the recipe on people's minds, that voluntary and compliance markets need to be merged in order for this whole thing to flourish and be able to work. On that note, I know that actually Cercarbono, back in October, I think, began an assessment process with the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market, the ICVCM, to become a core carbon principle eligible program. How far along is this process, and what's its significance?
Yeah, we have been in the whole process, starting with ICROA like 2 years ago into 2023, that we started to strengthen all our program to build on the governance, strengthen also the governance, and to follow all the best practices in the market. So we got the ICROA endorsement in September 2023. Our focus after that was twofold. One was being CORSI eligible and also being approved by ICVCM. On ICVCM, we did changes in our program, in our protocol, in order to apply to at the program level. We applied on last September, and we were expecting an answer from ICROA for ICVCM on the summer of 2024. However, we know and we acknowledge that they have a lot of work and they are they have some delays on the process, but we expect to be approved at the program level in this Q1. We are pretty optimistic. We have been working pretty hard in order to incorporate the recommendations. And once we are approved at the program level, we are going to apply at the category level. So we are also in the process of updating our proprietary methodologies. We have 4 proprietary methodologies: RED+, AR methodology, renewable energy, and landfill gas. So those 4 methodologies are going through a third-party review. We hire a company which is specialized on methodology development in order to do the third-party review. And once we end that process, which is expected to be ended this Q1, we are also going to apply at the category level. So one of our main objectives from 2025 is being ICVCM eligible, that our crates has the CCP labels as well.
Excellent. Definitely looking forward to that announcement. Alex, another question I have for you is regarding the development of high-impact projects in developing economies. What would you say are the main challenges in this sector?
Yeah, when you work developing economies, the approach is pretty different because project developers lacks of many things in order to develop the projects. There are things around land property, the public information around land property is not centralized in many of these countries. Also, the information around indigenous communities it's not complete. There's not enormous capacities on practitioners on the ground. So there are many challenges on developing projects on developing countries. So, and that's, I think, is one of the main advantages of Cercarbono, that we acknowledge that, and we are in a position on giving the tools in order to project developers to advance in the projects and to support them through the whole certification cycle. So some challenges are, for example, in the regulatory scale. So in that sense, we work together with project developers, with BBBs, hand by hand, in order that the project has the information that they need in order to comply with the local and with the national regulations. Also, all the process with Cercarbono, the methodologies and the protocol are easy to follow. They are pretty simple but rigorous at the same time. So project developers could build the project really easily following our normative documents and the tools that we have. And also we have another tools that help them showcase for example, co-benefits of the projects. We have a SDG tool that help them show how the projects are benefiting or contributing to the SDGs when they also certify the project. On top of that, one of the main advantages, as I already mentioned, is that we have a pretty strong registry platform. Everything is done through the platform, through Eco Registry. All the documents are uploading to Eco Registry. So it's really easy to follow how the project is going into the certification process. So it's pretty transparent in that side. You don't feel that the project is going to a black box, and you have plenty interaction with the certification team. So as being from the developing world, from Colombia, from Latin America, we believe on interaction, on personal interaction, and keeping in mind that being really conscious about where we can have conflict of interest, or keeping in mind that we need to keep rigorosity at the high level. But we believe that that interaction doesn't fight with rigorosity and conflict of interest. And that really helped on project developers and BBBs on the whole certification process. So that has allowed us to have a really acceptance in the Latin American market and other markets like Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, in which Cercarbono already have projects.
Understood. That brings me to my next question, which is how do you see the VCM changing between now and 2030?
So I think given that there are many regulatory schemes are being growing in many countries, I think there will be a convergence between VCM and all these regulatory schemes. And at some point, the amount of credits that will be transacted in the VCM will have a top in 2030. And then there's going to be a switch between the VCM and all these national schemes, Article 6 and Article 6.2 and also Article 6.4. So I will see that there will be an increase on the amount of credits, the amount of projects that are going through the VCM. But at some point near 2030, there is going to be a continuous shift into these other mechanisms. We need to wait that countries start building their own regulation for participating in Article 6.2, that they really start building not only the regulation, but the whole governance of internal carbon markets, the structure, the technology. And then once the countries start having more participation in the carbon market through Article 6.2, we will see that shift.
And what's your opinion about the newly accepted Article 6.4 mechanism? How do you see that affecting the carbon markets in the foreseeable future, specifically as it pertains to developing economies?
So I think these two mechanisms are pretty important because Article 6.2 and Article 6.4 will be instrumental for complying indices of the countries. So we will see more connection between the carbon action in the field and the policy goals on decarbonization, on countries' decarbonization. So right now it's not that attached, it's more attached to companies' goals, but we will see more country, how that will shift to country goals because it's going to be really tied to NDC compliance. So countries will be more strategic on what kind of projects they will promote, what kind of project they will give corresponding adjustment and letter of authorizations. So if a policy on countries is well designed, countries should target those sectors that really help on building not only contributing to their development efforts, but also to the climate focus or climate goals. 6.4, I think, is an evolution of the CDM. I think it was needed at this time because CDM methodology has some time that were developed. They needed to build on all these core carbon principles. They needed to be updated. There is new technology out there that really could help on having more throughput on the certification process. So it's a step that it was really needed to change to 6.4 and to incorporate all the innovations and all the new developments that the carbon market has had in the last years. I don't think that will replace totally the VCM. I think VCM will be integrated, fully integrated with the 6.4, 6.2. And I think all the bilateral mechanisms through 6.2 is going to be really powerful, maybe more than the 6.4 mechanism.
Excellent. I'd say that is an optimistic outlook. And let's see, I hope it does pan out. Last question I have for you, Alex, is what plans or future announcements Cercarbono has lined up for this year, and which of those can you share with us already? Our main focus this year is to reach full CORSIA eligibility. We are right now conditionally approved by CORSIA. We advanced from the last report because we only have 2 pending requirements, and I think Cercarbono will comply with those 2 pending requirements this year. We also, our second most important goal is to get the ICVCM endorsement
and approval at the program level and the category level. But also, we want Cercarbono to be recognized as a global leader, one of the top 3 standards globally. And we are doing all the efforts in order to be there with more projects, more methodologies. In the area of methodology, we are working with a partner on a blue carbon methodology. We are also working on sargassum methodology as well. There is also methodologies being developed in the oil and gas sector for Cercarbono. So this year is going to be really important for deploying those methodologies to the market with the whole core carbon principles and the ICVCM requirements. Also, on that way of global recognition, we want Cercarbono not only to be instrumental for carbon markets, but also for other type of markets. We have developed our circular economy program, and we already have a first project registered in that circular economy program, which is going to issue plastic credits. This project is from Bangladesh, and we expect to issue those credits at the second quarter, if all the certification process goes as we think. And also we have developed biodiversity program. Being Colombia, one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, we were asked by many project developers on how can they get funding with their biodiversity effort, conservation and restoration efforts. So we partnered with a project developer here in Colombia, and we developed our program, biodiversity program. We adopted methodology on indicative species, on conservation of indicative species, on jaguars. And we have also the first project to be registered in our biodiversity program. We think that we are going to be the first standard globally to have a biodiversity project to be certified under a traditional carbon scheme, but on a biodiversity side. That's also one of our plans, and we expect to have that project certified maybe on Q2 or Q3. Also, we are working towards having a transparency tool. We are going to launch this transparency tool pretty soon. And this transparency tool wants to, require project developers to disclose how the benefits and the incomes from the projects are being used in order to give some clues on buyers on how those projects are really benefiting the communities. And lastly, one of our main program is how can we leverage on tools like insurance. Cercarbono was the first standard to have land use sector or land use project to be to be insured by a warranty and indemnity insurance from Howden. This project from Ghana in Africa insured their credits, and they were able with this insurance to get a premium on their carbon credits. So we want to this year to implement this kind of instrument that builds on the confidence of the buyers, strengthen the integrity of the standard and the transparency and the stand in order to get a better market share in the carbon market.
Fantastic. It sounds like a truly busy and exciting year ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, this is a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to tell us about all the important work that Cercarbono is doing. Wishing you a successful 2025.
Thank you very much, Violet, and thank you very much to Carbonsations for this opportunity. I'm really looking forward for this year, which, as you mentioned, is going to be really busy, but really exciting at the same time.
For sure. Thanks so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Carbonsations podcast and would like to hear more conversations like this, please be sure to subscribe. We really appreciate the support.